Kyle Larson has a record performance at Kansas Speedway, plus Chase Elliott has a resurgence, and AJ Allmendinger calls out his engine maker. Welcome back to the Breaking Bob channel. Hope y'all are doing well on this Sunday night. The checkered flag just flew out in Kansas City, Kansas just seconds ago. Kyle Larson, your winner. We'll get into all the recap and action from today's race. But before that, hit that subscribe button. Always talking NASCAR and racing on a daily basis. My thoughts from last night's Truck Series race where Corey Heim, not the winner, but did make headlines with him and Carson Hocevar, the actual winner. It could be a rivalry brewing potentially, but the Slim Reaper Carson Hocevar did take the Truck Series checkered flag last night. And, well, if you missed that, go check it out. But we were talking about the main event on Sunday. The Cup Series was out in Kansas Speedway, and everyone's favorite mile-and-a-half oval. People have even been pushing for the championship race there. And honestly, today kind of felt similar to a playoff-style race there. And it wasn't because of the point totals and just the urgency, but it was who was leading the race. It was the dominant cars that we expect from mile-and-a-halfs, the Penske's, the JGRs, the Hendrick Motorsports, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, the usual suspects when it comes to championship contenders. And, well, today it was Kyle Larson who usually dominant, but sometimes finds a way to lose it. And even the last 5 Kansas races, the driver that had led the most laps hadn't won, but this time it was the 5 team as he took a record performance, over 200 laps led for the first time in Kansas Speedway history, 220 of the 267 laps, I believe it was today, in the Advent Health 400. Might have a stroke and need Advent Health if this keeps up. But for Larson, just a dominant performance as the month of May is getting underway. He flies to Indianapolis tonight for the Indy Motor Speedway practice and then qualifying this week as his month of May. He, of course, is doing the double again this year with the Coke 600 and 500 out in Indy and Charlotte. Well, he's in good form, clearly, and good luck for the rest of the competition, whether it's at Indianapolis, North Wilkesboro next weekend, or Charlotte at the 600, because no matter what you put him in, dirt racing, open wheel, NASCAR, stock car, he's a threat to winning anything. And today it was his car control again, winning stages 1, 2, and the final race, or the final stage, the checkered flag itself. 3rd win of the season for Larson, although it wasn't like there was not drama. There wasn't other contenders. Even the last lap, it looked like he was nursing that right rear home. I think it almost may have given out on him late and looked like maybe a Pocono incident from 2022 or 2021. But regardless of that, there were some contenders. Christopher Bell finishing 2nd, Ryan Blaney 3rd. It's the 4th time in Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson's career they finished 1 and 2. Kyle Larson now 3 and 1, beating Bell straight up in the 1-2 finishes. And for Ryan Blaney, this is his best Kansas Speedway finish in his career. And it looked like if that finish had gone another 5-6 laps, either of those cars might have been able to hunt down Larson, like I said, but it sounded like all 3 of those cars were just nursing their tires, just trying to get it home in one piece on a very long green flag cycle to end that race. This was, for the most part, like last week at Texas, a very straightforward race for the first 2 stages, and then it looked like, much to the excitement of Clint Boyer in the Fox booth, that we might have Texas's repeat of the 3rd stage last week. I think it was 4 or 5 cautions to open up the stage. In the first 30 laps, I believe, of stage 3, only 3 green flag laps. Every time they'd re-rack the field, well, you know the saying, cautions breed cautions, and this was no exception until they were finally able to figure out. It looked like Tyler Reddick might bring out the caution on that final restart there with, I think it was 70 to go. But no, they were able to keep it straight, and nobody pushed their PSIs on the back right or back left tire too hard to the point where we had any blowouts there outside of Carson Hocevar nearly giving the 5 team a heart attack. That would have definitely had Hendrick Motorsports and Mr. H in the ear of Carson saying, watch yourself. We'll give you the Ross Chastain treatment from Darlington a few years ago if you watch yourself and you take away another win from the 5 team. But crisis averted, Carson. You're good. You got it to pit road there. But that was a little drama there. But yeah, I mentioned that it was Blaney and Bell that were the fast cars late there. Chase Elliott was another guy, and Chase Elliott fans, congratulations. Finally showed some from speed to compete at the front of the field, not just consistency. Nearly passed Kyle Larson at the end of stage 2, closed down late, mowed down 3-4 second lead in about 20 laps there, really competed with his teammate there. We haven't seen that much from the 9 team outside of his Clash win, but that was a non-points paying race. We haven't seen Chase Elliott lead a ton of laps this year, and he even led a few. So big for him, even though once again, his pit crew got him ahead of Kyle Larson at one point in stage two. They paid the favor back in stage three, got him sent back to the field, and ended up getting a top 10 result. But it's a step in the right direction for the 9 team, not just consistency, but now getting closer to the front of the field and matching his teammate Kyle Larson in that speed up front. Another driver very fast today was Brad Keselowski in the 6 team from RFK. We expect it from Chris Buescher, even Ryan Preece now, but Brad Keselowski, of course, snake bitten all season long, and he was hunting down Chase Elliott for the lead, and then, well, he blew a tire. In true Brad Keselowski fashion, if something can go wrong, it will for the 6 team this year. Blew a tire. That ended his day. Nothing to show for it. He's at a point where he must win to get in. I think it's very safe to say at this point. And then just another result where he has the speed, but not able to finish it. And it's tough for Brad, where both of his RFK teammates, Ryan Preece, Chris Buescher, both finish inside the top 10, and Keselowski ends up finishing in the wrecker and in the garage early. It's frustrating for the 6 team because it's not indicative of the speed that they brought today. And I think that's kind of surprising because this was not a track I think a lot of people circled for the 6 team to be strong at. Like I said, even though looking back, the 17 last year was an inch away from winning this race in the spring. So just another week for the 6 team just struggling to figure out a finish to their race. And Denny Hamlin, another driver who probably was one of the fastest cars all day, but we never saw him even close to clean air. I think the closest we got was 6th place in stage 1 because he had clutch issues. I believe he lost first gear. And that was an issue when it came to pit road. They had to push his car out of the pit stall. He had to throttle down and just basically shove that gear into second gear. And it finally gave away in stage 3. His car completely shut down on the pit road, and just that was it for the 11 team. We never got to see him actually compete up against the 5 team, the 20 team. Frustrating because as soon as they made that first change in the green flags pit cycle in stage 1, he rocketed from 19th, 20th to 6th place and got stage points. Even was able to get stage points with the issues on pit road where they lost a lug nut and had to reattach it from the pit road guys, the tire changers clip on. It was one of those moments where they didn't even have to worry about the car getting reignited. They had to finish the pit cycle first, and it was just another week where the 11 team speed, but Denny Hamlin, the black cat of death, just this was not the Kansas playoff race. Still finding a way though to find a way to just get bit some way or another. But like I previously talked about, this was a long green flag cycle race to end it, and for the most part, stages 1 and 2 was an indicative of the entire race. Stage 3, yeah, we got off to a little clunky start, but I saw some discourse saying this was a boring race. Everyone expects Kansas just to be a 10 out of 10 race every single year. I think the expectations, the microscope was on it so much because of the last few weeks with some marquee tracks at NASCAR not delivering to the standards, especially with the next gen the last few years. We've looked to Kansas to kind of save us, and I thought the racing was good. You saw passing, you saw tire fall off. Yes, it may not be the banger finish that we saw. Yes, it may not be 4 or 5 wide on every restart, but appreciate what you got. I think NASCAR fans are sometimes a little too hypercritical about the racing there, and not every race is going to be the 2022 Coke 600. It's not going to be that Kansas race from a few years ago. But I thought the racing was overall fairly strong. I mean, you saw guys able to pass when they had runs. It wasn't just complete aero blocking. If you got side drafted, it didn't just completely shut down your run. You were still able to get around guys. So I thought the racing overall today was very strong at Kansas. And like I mentioned at the beginning today, it really produces the cream that rises to the top, and it kind of shuffles out the ones that have speed but aren't consistent, like a Denny Hamlin that, let's face it, he's always going to be a contender, but he may not have the consistency that a Christopher Bell or a Kyle Larson or Ryan Blaney do in the playoffs, and that's what separates those teams when it comes down to those 5, 6, 7 playoff points when it really matters late in the season. One other notable event before we get into the results and wrap this race up from Kansas, AJ Allmendinger made it 4 laps, I believe, in today's race and blew up. His engine just gave out, and the white smoke appeared. NASCAR social team said, oh, we've got the white smoke for the second week from Rome to Kansas City, Kansas. The white smoke is just flying through the air. But no, AJ Allmendinger blowing up on the track and then blowing up on the radio as well, saying, I hate ECR engines. These guys suck. And there's been some fans speculating in the last few weeks that ECR's engines may not be producing the same kind of power that Hendrick Motorsports does. Of course, Chevy with their engine shops, they do split shops, even though they do kind of align somewhat and share notes. Maybe wondering, maybe that's the difference between the trackhouse and RCRs and the call it, stagnant, maybe falling behind compared to Aspire. Of course, Hendrick Motorsports, but maybe that's part of the reason there. And you've seen that frustration shine for AJ Allmendinger. I believe that's his second engine lost already this season. So ECR engine's not really trending well in the RCR camp, it sounds like, or at least on the colleague campus with AJ Allmendinger and that alliance there. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it. But let me know your thoughts about that. Am I just looking way too into this with a tinfoil hat, or is there something with this ECR versus Hendrick engines in the Chevy camp? I know I've seen some channels like Eric Estep talk about it recently. I think there may be something to it, but I don't know. Maybe it's just a conspiracy. We love to do that as NASCAR fans too. But before we get out of here, let's look at some of the other results today. Josh Berry getting a top 10, sixth place. Really raw speed that was a top 10 car all weekend. Just seems like ever since that Vegas race, though, he's had an issue one way or the other that has kept him from being a top 5 car. And this weekend was no exception. He was running top 10, top 5 all week, or all race, and then had a pit penalty where he, uncontrolled equipment, had to slide into the pit and come out and nearly took out one of the cars in front of him with the pit team there. Just seems like that 21 team is so close to putting it all together, and that's dangerous for the competition because a fourth Penske car virtually is not what the field needs. They've already got issues with all three heading to Phoenix. If Josh Berry's basically an extension of that, which we all assume it likely is right now, especially the way it's running, once they all get clicking, if they can just nip those mistakes in the bud, we could be looking at Josh Berry being a potential round of 8 contender, maybe even 8 dark horse for the Final Four if all things go his way. I mentioned RFK Racing. Ryan Preece, 7th, Chris Buescher, 8th, both in the top 10 without Brad Keselowski. It looks like Preece might be the new sidekick for Chris Buescher. It seems like there's always a deal with the RFK. They have to have a duo running together in the field there. But yeah, that's just frustrating for Brad with both the RFK guys in there. And then also in the top 10, rounding it out, John Hunter Nemechek gets Legacy Motor Club, another top 10 on a mile and a half. Seems like they're very, very strong. And his teammate Eric Jones was up there in the top 15 as well. Got caught up in one of those stage 3 incidents with Bubba Wallace and Justin Haley. But Legacy Motor Club has definitely turned it around, especially from the just sluggish start with their Toyota 10-year last year. With basically no notes from just starting from scratch with TRD. No help from Joe Gibbs Racing. So glad to see them starting to get a little bit better in the right direction. John Hunter Nemechek putting together on their top 10 result today. And another shout out to Todd Gillen, 12th place. The Todd father just bringing it home consistently. He is looking to just stay in that top 20 in the driver standings, and you could see him potentially be a dark horse on one of those drafting tracks. I'm just saying. We're fans of the Todd father over here. And then one other driver I want to wrap up with here was Corey Heim, 13th place today. The highest finishing 23-11 driver. And that also, if you want to extend it to his owner, Denny Hamlin, he outran him, who finished in the garage, like I mentioned earlier. Corey Heim, 4th car. He's going to be running the Nashville race, it sounds like, as well as he might try and add a few extra races with a 4th car for 23-11. But somebody get him into a cup ride next year. 23-11, it's time. Coupling that with Riley Herbst in 27th place. Look, it's not fair to completely judge Riley Herbst. This is his first full-time season in the Cup Series, but it's Corey Himes as well getting very, very few seat time in this next-gen car for him to go out there and run top 15 to finish on the lead lap and show consistent speed, outdueling his teammates today, like Tyler Reddick, like Bubba Wallace, who have won at this track. Just speaks volumes to, I think, the talent and what the future looks like for Corey Heim. Let's hope to see him in Cup Series sooner rather than later on a full-time basis, not just these one-offs here. But that's just really, I thought, something we needed to touch on there was Corey Heim outrunning his teammates today on a track that 23-11 was supposed to be very dominant on today. Didn't see that speed mostly today. So, yeah. Also, one other shout-out, Shane Van Gisbergen in 20th place. Look, we're building on something. It's not going to be pretty on these ovals, but finished, I believe, on the lead lap, or he was right on the lead lap there late before Kyle Larson was hunting him down. Got it home in one piece. That's all they can ask for on these ovals is him learning, because I think we're a little too critical right now. He's been on these tracks maybe 1-2 times his entire career on the Xfinity Series. Then you throw in the next-gen car. Yeah, I think everyone knows he's banking his way in for a playoff spot on these road courses, and everything else is just gravy. So 20th place for SVG. Not bad, all things considered. But let me know your thoughts down below about overall Kansas today. I think racing wasn't bad. Like I said, we got Kyle Larson winning, so that may sour some people on fatigue. But overall, we've got the All-Star race next week at North Wilkesboro. Then the Coke 600 Memorial Day weekend, the biggest racing weekend in America. I'm excited for all of that moving forward. It's the month of May officially. As IndyCar, of course, Alex Palou dominating that world over there. We'll definitely focus a little bit more on the IndyCar world on the channel as Kyle Larson sends his full camp to Indy tonight. And it's on from there, folks. But I appreciate you for watching. As always, like this video if you like what you saw. Subscribe to the channel for more content here at Breaking Bob. I'm always talking NASCAR. Just hit the button if you haven't already. There's no need. You're already watching. You're already paying attention. Go ahead and click the button. But I do appreciate you for making it this far. We'll see you next time on the channel. Whatever news may break, I'll be here to cover it. Stay tuned for more.